for the Learner Centered Collaborative podcast. I'm your host, Katie Martin, and today I'm joined by Dr. Justin Terry. He has more than 24 years of experience in education. He's currently in his 7th year as Superintendent of Forney ISD. In addition to his appointments on the Texas Teacher Vacancy Task Force and Industry-Based Certification Committee, he was named 2022 National School Public Relations Association Superintendent to Watch and the 2024 Region 10 Superintendent of the Year. Welcome, Justin. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Katie. Excited to be here with you today.
So we just recently met a couple months ago when I got to tour the Opportunity Central in your district, which we'll talk a lot about today.
Great.
But in 2 months, we've become friends and launched an event, and we have superintendents coming together to visit the Opportunity Central. So I'm just super excited to have you here. I know that you're an amazing leader and excited to get everyone a chance to learn more about you.
Well, I don't know about that, but it has been fun getting to know you and some of the great things that you guys are doing with Learning Centered. And it's just I think we've gotten to know each other really quick, really fast. And I mean, it's your family. I'm hearing all about them already. So anyway, no, it's been fun. Looking forward to a great future together too.
Yeah. Well, I do share a lot about the kids. It's hard not to weave in the kids, but thanks for caring and paying attention.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to start from the beginning. What are some of the key experiences that have really shaped you as the leader that you have become today?
Oh, there's so many, but it really boils down to I think the people in our lives that guide and lead us and mentor us. And my father, I grew up in an educator's house, and so we tend to not drift too far away from that most of the time. And I was blessed to have a dad who was a coach and a teacher, and so that's all I knew growing up. And then I was just handed off to just incredible leader after leader that took me under their wing and guided my career. And it just have inspired me throughout, to really, invest in public education, but also to begin to transform it and look at it differently. And I mean, there's a list, I can't even name them all, that have just brought small little things into my life that create, in my opinion, what we all have to have, which is a solid foundational belief system that you can build off of. And so, with that, I just think back and I'm so appreciative of those who have poured into us. And so that's where I think, our goal as a leader is got to be continuing to build capacity in others, so that, whether it's today or 20 years down the road, that maybe one little thing that we do or say is going to impact a lot of others in their careers, but more importantly, our kids.
Absolutely. And you've been in Forney 7 years, or have you been there 10 years and superintendent is 7 years?
Wow, I think this is my 11th year in Forney and my
Okay.
6th year as a superintendent here. So it's a great place, great people.
Well, we know that that's not always the case for a lot of districts and systems to have a steady, constant leader, and it makes a big difference.
It does, and Forney's we're just like 20 minutes east of Dallas in a extremely fast-growing suburb. We're probably, I think, in the fastest growing county in the nation and the fastest growing city in the nation and one of the fastest growing school districts in Texas. And and so when you have that much growth, I think when I got here 11 years ago, maybe we were 7,500 kids, and now we're over 20,000. So it's when you see that much growth coming in, uh, consistent leadership to me is key for fast growth, because cultures are coming in, different ideologies coming in, leadership changes sometimes. But most importantly, if you've got consistent leadership based in some foundational beliefs and values for your organization, then your district can really continue to move fast.
So I just want to hit on something you just said, because some people are probably going, wait, what? 10 years ago, you were at 7,500 kids, and now you're at 20,000?
Yeah, don't quote me on the numbers, but
Roughly.
yeah, 12 years ago, we were probably about 7,600 to 8,000 kids, and next year we're projected to be over 20,000.
That is incredible. So a lot of people are managing, we were talking about managing change earlier, but a lot of people are managing change just in terms of programming and kids, and a lot of places are declining in enrollment.
Right.
Uh, what what kind of systems have to be in place for you to scale that quickly? Like what are some things y'all are doing to be able to say, look at my Texas came out. I just said y'all. Um, what are the things you guys are doing to manage that change and the amount of kids coming into your district?
Well, you said systems and scaling, and I think it really comes down to culture. And so to be able to change on a dime, especially as fast as we're growing, or when you're in a larger school district, that the larger you get, the slower it is to be able to turn that ship.
Hmm.
And I think we all understand that. And so what we tried to do from the get-go is it was begin to build a culture that was very acceptance of change and ready for it. And so we built an organizational structure that is very unique and different. We don't talk anything about boxes and hierarchies, and instead we use, if you look at our organizational chart that's usually online, you can find is and it's grown, but it's circles that actually overlap.
Hmm.
And we teach that number one, the circles have to be collaborative. They have to be. We have learners that sit in the center of our organization, and everything else is a support system around it. But it's collaborative, and that keeps us talking to each other and overlapping with our departments and not in isolation. But all of those circles have to be constantly moving and flexible as well, so that as a need arises and something comes up as you're growing, that you're able to shift your organization immediately to the resources within your organization fast. So we actually reorganize our school district every year, um, because we're growing 1,600 to 2,000 kids a year, and I mean, it's basically a small school district. So we base a lot of our culture on that organizational structure, but we base a lot of how we implement change really on a book from Michael Fullen that I lean on a lot, called Motion Leadership. And think the principles that he teaches in there are very different from your standard approach to change management, um, but it helps. But it's an approach that really is a more of a ready, fire, aim approach, to where you're able to turn and move as the need arises in the school district. So
Well, there's a lot that I have to like double click on because one, I think people are probably going, wait, you have system, you restructure your district office every year in the management structure and you're working in circles to collaborate. Sounds awesome, but it also probably sounds terrifying to some people who have been locked in to the same structure for so many years, and they understand I'm going to be a teacher or a principal or a coach, and then I'm going to be a director in central office, and then I move into assistant soup. We have those hierarchies that often keep a lot of things in place that we know still don't may not work for kids or may not work for the world we need, and yet those systems keep us locked in. And yet you're saying because you're growing, it's been a catalyst to be able to have a more flexible structure in place.
yeah, it's fast growth is a blessing and a curse. It really
I
is.
bet.
We could, the beauty is we're not closing schools, so we have resources, and when you have resources and you're growing resources, you're able to shift and change resources or divide responsibilities. Um, but yeah, it is change isn't comfortable. I don't think anytime you implement any kind of disequilibrium or chaos into an organization, it does create uncertainty. But I think that's part of that cultural discussion that we've had every year with our staff and our leadership, and our induction process. As you come in, one of the first things we teach you is how our organization works. And so when you constantly have this chaos being put into the system, that disequilibrium, then the one certain is that there's uncertainty.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? And so we expect this to occur every year, and we expect innovation to occur all the time, because that's our our vision statement here is inspiring students through innovative education. And so innovation has been a part of this community and a lifeline or foundational value for much longer than I've been here. So it's who we are, if that makes sense.
Well, so what I'm hearing is like you have a clear vision. You know what you're about. You have values in the way that you organize, and your structures really align with that to allow you to be innovative and allow you to try new things. So, help us understand for those who haven't read Michael Fullen's book, Motion Leadership, what are some of the principles that really guide your philosophy around change leadership, change
Yeah, I
management?
mean, I think a lot of change, management approaches are going to be a 3 to 5 year implementation, and there's so much time spent in the planning process that by the time uh, implementation occurs, that you know it's time to change again. And I think sometimes we get caught up in that, and
Hmm.
we've again, it's more of a ready, fire, aim approach, in that we're gonna learn about implementation during the implementation.
Hmm.
uh, we're gonna fail forward. We're gonna understand that that's just a part of what we're gonna have to do, is try things, experiment with things, and shift and adjust and change those as we find the need to make those operational changes. So it's you have to be live on your feet around here, quick on your feet. But our team's really done a great job at implementing a lot of different innovative strategies that have really transformed our school district, and making things look a little different for kids sometimes. And it's nice because we focus on kids, and sometimes that does make the adults a little bit uncomfortable. But you have to understand that's kind of what we're going to do here in
Yeah.
Forney.
So some people might be hearing, oh, we just innovate and we just do whatever, right? We just like see something and we go for it. And knowing
Uh,
you, that's not the case. And,
yeah.
as we talk with school leaders, and a lot of people are like, what's the plan? I want to know what the 3 to 5 year plan is and what are we going to be doing in 2 years from now? And similarly, like we don't know what we're going to be doing in 2 years from now because we have to bring the people together. We have to understand the context and the opportunities. We have to try some things out. And that makes people feel like there's not a plan. It makes them feel like unsturdy. But what I'm hearing is we know where we're going, we have a vision, and we are going to work through the process together to figure out how to take the next step.
Yeah, and I gotta pull another book in just because we know and love him so much over there. Back there's a guy named George Couros, and he talks a lot about the concept of innovation inside the box, and that's one of actually the values that we discuss a lot here is we're gonna do the right things for kids, and
Mhm.
sometimes that means we have to change and create and be innovative and transformational to do that. But one of the things we don't ever allow our teams to talk about in Forney is the innovation outside the box. It's a pretty common term, but what I think's made us pretty successful in doing things differently is really looking at organizationally the box itself, um, and not just assuming that because we've always done it in education and this is how we went to school,
Mhm.
that really is the policy or the statute, or really the limit on how far we can create or push our barriers in education. And so we take a lot of time, to your point. We don't just, oh, that's a great idea, let's try it.
Sure.
We take a lot of our time in the planning process to really define what our box is. We work with our attorneys, and does this really mean this? Does it
Right.
really look like this? Can we try this a little different way? And so our first step is taking a lot of intentional time to define the parameters that we work within. And we tell all our staff this: if it's good for kids, then there's a way to do it within the
Right.
box. And there's so many things in education I think that we just assume we can't do. Um, but it's a yes culture here, and we try and focus on the fact that if it's good for kids, then we can do it. There's a way to do it.
Right. Yeah, we put it's similar with the structure, right? We put these limitations. This is the way it's always been, so this is the only thing we can do. And one of my colleagues shared that he was trying to create a new assessment or accountability policy in the district. And he thought he needed a waiver from the state to do all these things differently. And when he went to the state, realized he actually didn't need the waiver. There was room to do all the things he wanted to do. It just hadn't been done. And so I think I appreciate that approach and your leadership there to say, let's not limit ourselves by what we've always done. Let's see really where the limitations are and push against those to be able to do things not flippantly, not in a space that's not going to be good for kids, but really within the realm of what's possible. Broaden that a little bit.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and that's probably when you really talk about design and planning. That's the time that's where we spend most of our time up front, because there are barriers and there's boundaries that, I mean, in every system that we live in. I mean, there's a speed limit when we drive down the road, right? And you got to understand what that is. And so that to me is step one in the process, and then it's just a matter of getting great people in the room and figuring out what the implementation plan looks like. And you can do that fast. Do that
Right.
fast.
Yeah, and I think like you said, you can iterate through it,
Right.
right? You can see that there's we don't have to have all the answers to start, and that sometimes is very scary for people. But getting in motion, trying something, and then come having a process to say, is it working? Is it not? One of the things that I often find with innovation or new initiatives is people say, we're doing the thing. And then whether it's like curriculum implementation or a new adoption or it's a new schedule, maybe not a new schedule, but people say regardless, we're doing the thing. And then they're like, oh, the thing didn't work. Our scores didn't go up or we didn't have the impact we thought we wanted to have. And I'm like, well, let's go back. Did you actually do the thing you said you were going to do? And often it's like 10% of people did the thing and
Right.
they didn't actually know if it was working or not. And so really getting to say, where are we trying to go? And then how do we test it, make sure, and then really come back and get feedback and understand, is it working, is it not, and what are the next steps? And that's the evolution, instead of just like we're going to do this new program and assume it works because we paid for it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think many times, you don't know the measurement components that you need to take a look at until you really get into the process itself.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's an outcome and a goal that you're seeking, you may be able to find a more of a summative look at what you're trying to accomplish. But the day by day, sometimes even in the process, we discover things we didn't even know that we were impacting that are a positive things that oh, we need to add this measurement here, or we need to take a look at this, or man, look what it just did to behavior, and we didn't even know it was going to happen. So yeah, no doubt. And I think too, one of the easiest things that we get tied up into, and I think you alluded to this a second ago, is many times in education, I think we think time is such, and I always ask that question first: what's the box look like, right? And policy, budget, whatever. But people always say it's time, and I think there's never enough of it. That's right. But I believe it was Richard DeFore said that that's also the one thing in education that we do control. And if we keep that in mind, that time is usually the hardest resource to go and grab and take hold of, but it's also the thing that we actually do control as
Hmm.
leaders in our school district and even as individuals and parents. So anyway, just something to add on when it comes to really implementation is I think that's the thing that we have to keep in mind is time's a piece of our implementation that we control always.
I love that you said that because we think, how do we fit this new initiative or idea into the time structure or boxes that we've already created in this schedule or whatever, instead of rethinking how we use the time.
Right.
And, even when I walk through classrooms and see different schedules and the way people organize time, you can see where there's space to collaborate with kids and space to do projects that are meaningful versus moving from reading to math to intervention to PE, and it's so structured that it's not really allowing for the deep and meaningful learning that we want. And that's just a function. There's lots of ways to use our time differently to get to those goals.
That's right. And as we really delve into, and I know virtual got such a bad name throughout the pandemic, but it's also the great equalizer potentially when it comes to time and learning. That I think many times we just we think, oh, virtual education is this over here and it's this isolated box. But what if it was integrated and it allowed for flexibility in learning, even in how we take attendance or whatever it may be. And so I think there's a piece to that that may be the equalizer for us as public educators as we move forward to break into choice at a whole nother level as well.
I love that. So I want to shift gears a little bit. When we first met, I think we bonded over our deep sense of purpose to make public schools the best option for all kids,
Right.
right? Um, so let's talk a little bit, like, what does that mean to you as a superintendent when you say you, I believe, feel like your charge is to make public schools the best option for kids? Like, what does that mean? What does
So
that look like?
um, I it's we can continue to complain and gripe as educators. I think we get wrapped up into that many times of because it's not necessarily a fair system when we don't have the voice that maybe we could have in policy making to do what's right for kids. And because I think that's the heart of every educator. Um, but if we take all the time that we have and we devote it to the complaining and fighting, um, what are we really doing for kids in that process? When if we would just take again the time that we control and devote it to really not just fighting choice, but what if we were the choice? And that's where our efforts, remained. And so, when it comes to public education, in my opinion, I look at us as we have the ability to be kind of an umbrella. And you can talk about voucher programs, you can talk about charter schools, private schools, home schools. The bottom line is that families these days, not like when you and I went to school,
Mhm.
but they understand best probably what for their kids, their family, and what their needs are, and it's going to look different from every one of them, and probably my three kids are all very different. Um, but so what if we could, underneath that umbrella, the public education system be kind of what I've called the education service provider for all,
Yeah.
through partnerships, through different ways that we educate kids, whether it's academies or magnets or, what if it's just allowing people to come into your building sometimes? There's some momentum that you gain in public education that maybe those relationships then can be mended or brought back in, and oh, you guys can do this for us. Or so
Mhm.
I think the future of public education really, if we would really tackle it this way, is the funds and all that could keep us as the umbrella to create choice. But when we put ourselves in a bifurcated or trifurcated system, all we're doing is cracking community.
Right.
And who we are as public educators, our foundation has always been we are community. We bring community together. On a Friday night football game, there's nothing like it in Texas anyway. I don't know about California out there, but in Texas, I mean, there's nothing like it. The band's playing, the kids are on the sideline cheering, and mom and pop are in the stands, and so it's generational and communities created, and that's what we're best at. And we can do that within the umbrella of public education, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, definitely games are not as big as they are in Texas, but they're still pretty fun here. Still fun Friday Night Lights. Anyway, I would say I love that. And Education Reimagined has this big idea, which is similar, that how do we create these ecosystems that allow communities to come together? The public schools become the hubs. And I love that you say this umbrella piece instead of fighting choice. Let's create those opportunities and choices to allow people to get what they need, right?
That's
And
right.
that might be some traditional school options, but it allows for kids to go out and work in the real world. It allows them to take virtual classes if they need, if that's the best option. During the pandemic, I thought a lot about, like, what if kids were going to soccer practice during school or dance class or band, and they don't have to spend 8 hours in school or seven and then go to practice and then go to tutoring and then do homework. Like, none of that really makes sense. We're still using time and stacking things instead of reimagining what the day looks like for kids to fit it all in a meaningful way.
That's right. And I think we all understand this as well, that, I mean, you and I probably learn on two different schedules, right?
Yeah.
And we learn in probably two different ways. Um, and so it's just allowing as many options and choices as we can create to again meet that family's need. And I think it's not a fight. It anymore. It needs to just be what we do and embrace it. And I think it can be done. I really do. And I think there's some great examples across the nation right now already. And but I think we can even go further in education. And I'm excited to see where we head.
Well, I think that that is a mindset. We talk a lot about mindset and the need to think about like how you view your role, whether it's keeping everything on track, continuing to do things the way we've always done it so that, we keep things in motion versus really trying to see those opportunities. And you clearly see your role as a leader to bring people together, create more opportunities for your community. And I think that's a powerful mindset that we need to continue to elevate and grow in our education ecosystems across the country.
Yeah, there's a futures we talked to as we were beginning to design some things here, and we always, just, well, okay, what does education look like? And obviously, you can talk about the future, bringing in AI, and what is that going to do to us? And as we get our you know chips implanted in our brain, obviously, what we teach needs to shift, and it needs to be humanized, and all the things. But one of the probably the biggest takeaways that we had as we were visioning and working on really what does 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road look like.
Mhm.
He said um, he said that education needs to stay, it will be integrated. Learning needs to be integrated um, as you move forward. And that's a community, that's parents, that's
Yeah.
family. It's this idea of learning and working together. And that's so faux pas, I think, these days because of the idea of safety and security and let's keep out and not pull in. But what if we could take learning not to an apprentice style approach, but what if it was all integrated together? What if 3 to 103 could actually, uh, or I think maybe you said earlier, 3 to gray. Uh,
103 is better. That's way better.
Yeah, but what if we could learn together? What if we could learn from each other? I mean,
Right.
from the experiences that we've had. And so I think the future of learning and education also has to be an integrated discussion. And how do we do that together?
Absolutely. I just finished reading the book, The Disengaged Teen.
Mm,
And right there's a lot of things we know about why kids are disengaged, but it's the sense of, am I doing something that matters, right? When kids are in that style that or in that space of exploration, not just uh, doing the thing they need to do to check the boxes, but in that exploration stage that we're doing things that we care about. We're not just learning, in our classroom, but in, like you said, mentorships from people who are older than us. We're teaching people how to do something. And I always get a kick out of educators saying to me, like professional learning or otherwise, you know, I really need to do something to learn it. Like I don't really learn something until I do it. And
right.
I always say, like, you're not different than anyone else. We all need to do that, right? We've told ourselves that we can learn it from a book. We can, fill in the multiple choice test and move on and we learned it. But really to learn something, we need to do it. We need to make mistakes. We need to get some feedback. We need to try again. And we need to create those opportunities throughout the days and weeks and years for our young people so that they're not just ready to graduate high school, that they're really ready to go on and continue to tackle those challenges outside of the walls of school.
Right. Yeah, I think what does the brain learning tell us, brain research, that 70% of what we actually experience actually makes it into long-term memory. And when we're just getting exposure in a lecture setting, I think we only retain about 10% of that knowledge. And
Yeah.
so, to your point, how is it that we can create educational experiences all the time and
Yeah.
kids in that experiential setting much longer than what we allow right now? And it's a shift.
It
There's
is
no
a shift.
shift.
And the flip side is people also hear, I'm often aware of the extremes that people, when you say like, oh, it's an experience, then it means what? A teacher can't ever teach anything and never can do a lecture. And that's not at all what I'm saying either, that sometimes there needs to be direct instruction and you need to teach something and read a book. But it can't be the end. There needs to be multiple opportunities to do something with it. And so it's just finding that balance that I think is important. And like you said, it is a shift because people often think it's one or the other. And really the future in my book is very much integrated.
There's no doubt. And I have a feeling you're a little bit of a constructivist like I am, but
A little bit.
yeah. I mean, we talk about the three E's: expose, then explore, then experience. And those don't have to be in any order, to your
Mhm.
point, but they're all necessary throughout the learning process. And so, you know, how do we create the amount of time necessary needed for the experiential opportunities? Again, it's something we control, but sometimes it's hard to break the 7 period, 45-minute day look, especially in buildings that were built for, you know, what we built them for.
Yeah.
Mission
Well,
education.
I mean, that's what you've done though, right? Like, so that's part of the model that you've put out there with the Opportunity Central.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about what is the history of the Opportunity Central and how is it different than your typical high school?
Sure. So, um, this same conversation, I guess, probably 12 years ago, just had a thought. What if you could, instead of having kids learn in a school and then one day go experience, or learn in a school and then have to send out for, a practicum or apprenticeship or whatever, what if you could do that all in the same location? And what if you could create a school experience that, um, all of these learners at all the different age levels could integrate together and learn together. And we could learn from businesses and learn from community and also teach business
Hmm.
and community all in one location. And so, um, here in college, centers are very common and popular, and they're incredible facilities across the nation. But one of the things that we've looked at with Opportunity Central is we added a third C. So we created about a 350,000 square foot facility that focuses on every square foot having the opportunity to serve career, college, and community, all in the same location. And so to do that, I think time is again one of those things that we had to really examine and take a look at and say, most schools are open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then they sit vacant on nights and weekends. And number one, we can't afford to do that anymore because buildings is expensive. But what if learning could happen all the time? What if it was like we did with the OC? It's open from 7 a.m. till the 9 p.m. at night, 6 to 7 days a week. And our kids are still involved in that learning process. And so that's kind of how we designed in this facility was we built a 3-story facility with a 7,900 seat arena in the middle of it. It's an event center, it's a mall, it's you name it. One of the questions we always ask our community is, well, what do you want to do with the OC? And we try and we try and create that opportunity for them. So we encourage the public to come in on the first floor. It is kind of a mall. It's open to the public all the time, even during school hours. And then we kind of built a 2-story school on top of that. So,
So, from my perspective, this thanks for sharing all that. And I got to go visit, and you walk in, and there's older generations walking the mall. You have students working at your fast food or kind of little restaurants under supervision of management. You have students hanging out, eating lunch. And then I walk in and there's, students selling flowers that they made that's, managed by a teacher. There's other businesses that people rent space, right? So there's functioning businesses selling things in the mall next to students working in their own shops, communities members collaborating and working in the shared spaces, I think there was a homeschool group that was meeting in the corner. So this is just the first floor that functions as a mall, but a co-working space where kids get to learn. And then there was some pop-up shops in the middle of the mall where kids were like testing their entrepreneurial ideas that they were learning about. So I'm like amazed at even just this first level. And I think when you talk about changing how we use time, changing how we use space, how we bring community together, it's not impossible, right? You've done what you've done is not impossible. And then, of course, the second level you said is students in CTE programs. So, hundreds of kids walk down the stairs in their scrubs because they've just been going through their classes upstairs, the community college on the top level. And I think you were hosting a Christmas or a holiday event at that weekend where the whole community was going to come together for a big concert. Like that's a total shift in when people think I'm going to build a new high school. This is not what people think about. So like pull back the cover a little bit around like how do you even go about creating a space like this that is so different than a traditional high school building, even the most innovative high school building.
Yeah, and I think the question is, what are you trying to accomplish? And in our case, we had multiple things that we were trying to accomplish. Number one, we were trying to serve multiple layers of career pathways. And so just to kind of talk on that for a second, it's a career center. So we have pretty much any kind of career pathway that you can imagine within that facility. But one of the things we believe in Forney is that it's one thing for us to go teach you to be a great auto mechanic or a cosmetologist, a beautician and have a certification at the end, or, a vet or a doctor. It's a whole nother thing to be able to take that knowledge and then go run a business and be successful and understand how what a business plan looks like and how to propose it, how to market it, how to have good customer service, how to work on a team, how to delegate, how to stock, how to order, all of these different components that we kind of have coined as just entrepreneurial skills. And so what we tried to design with this was this parallel pathway um, that no matter what career you're going into, that you had the ability to also explore these different future ready skills, right? And so that's kind of where we started. Then we listened and kind of looked around our community, and we're a bedroom community. At the time we don't have a lot of retail. We don't have a public library. We do not have any event space for rental. We are a long way away from a large arena for graduation. We had to drive an hour for example.
Wow.
So then the question was, well, if we're going to create this business type learning environment, well, are there other things that we can layer in to keep this as a living facility? And the question was, what does our community want? What does it need? Nobody should ever build the OC again, because that's what we needed.
Right.
But the concepts can be taken away and I think planted in any community. And so that's where we started, was just really a needs assessment of what do we want our kids to learn, and what is our community, what are their needs? How do we develop and grow them as well?
Right. Well, it kind of ties into this theme of bringing it all together, right? It's bringing school together so it includes the community. But like you said, the community needed so many different things instead of like a strip mall over here, an arena here, a school here, a CT center or career center. Instead of building all of those things, like that's really hard to do. And a lot of people need to be involved in that and maybe not have the resources. But when you can build one space that can function in those ways for many people, it's a better use of resources, it's a better use of time, and it's actually helping to develop the skills in one space, as you talked about, that kids are going to need and not have it so disjointed.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And resources are scarce these days, and they're not getting any more plentiful by any means. And so how do you use the resources that we do have, the dollars that we do have, in a way that could serve not just schools, but our community, our businesses, you name it. Well, I mean, one of the kind of foundational pieces we talk about with that facility is that it's got to be multi-purpose to multifunctional. So the space has got to be able to flip, whether it's a classroom by day, or it turns into a business at night. You name it. But it's also got to be future proofed.
Mhm.
Malls are kind of a dying breed, for example, in our case. And so we are looking at that and saying, okay, well, if this isn't working here, then how do we begin to shift? And so the facility, but also the operations have to create flexibility and future proof whatever workforce needs are, the learning needs are in the future as well. So those have been kind of two foundational pieces that we've tried to focus on as we develop and build the OC.
And like you said, it doesn't mean we need 10 OCs in different places or hundreds of them. It's about how do you use those principles to think about what your community needs, how you can bring everyone together and leverage the resources for something better than they can all be individually.
Yeah, and I think you can do it in existing facilities as well. I
Yeah.
think we've got millions of square feet of schools, 25 schools, whatever plus. Um, what does that look like in a traditional high school? I mean, how could you, revamp that and section things off or create those opportunities for kids or and I think it's there. I think one of the questions we're trying to answer right now is, how do you take some of those components and really push them down into K through 8? Um,
I
I
have some
think
ideas.
I do too. I do too. Maybe we can talk.
Yeah. Well, I think that using those principles is helpful for people to be thinking about, and like you said, there's lots of space because a lot of places are in declining enrollment, because malls are not becoming the biggest things. We have plenty of spaces. It's how we think about using them and how we can bring the community together. So we could talk about this forever. I know that there's lots more that people are want to dive into, and maybe we do another one that goes deeper into the OC and some of those principles. But I want to end on our rapid fire questions. I didn't tell you we were going to do these. Uh,
Was not worried about this.
so it's true rapid fire. So just what comes to mind. I have about 6 questions for you. So, what's one thing we should stop doing in education?
Oh my goodness.
Just one.
Uh, the traditional schedule.
Great. What's one thing we should start doing?
Um, I really believe integrating virtual education to allow for a variable of time and flexibility, I think is going to be vital moving forward. That's going to create the opportunities that to design.
Love it. What should we keep doing?
We can't lose the humanized side of education. Relationships is the core of what we do every day, and it is by far the core value, the foundational piece of education that cannot be lost. So even virtual needs to have engagement with a meaningful adult in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one thing that you are focusing on learning right now individually?
Oh man. I am trying to become halfway caught up on AI, and I'm not doing a very good job. So maybe somebody could reach out and help me. But I'm trying to understand how to really utilize that moving forward. So,
It's a big undertaking. We all are. All right. What's one thing that many people might not know about you?
oh well, so I'm that. So around here everybody knows, but my family, we are big Disney fans, and they may not know that about me, but I'm that guy, that Disney adult. I know I shouldn't admit that. Like if you need
Isn't
help planning your Disney vacation, I can help you. I know all the tips and tricks. I got your back. My wife and I will go by ourselves, just because it's the greatest place on earth.
awesome. I will probably not need help planning, but I'm sure someone out there needs help planning a trip to Disney. Do you have a favorite quote or saying? Scans the office.
I know. I'm like thinking. Yeah, I don't know that it's a famous quote or saying that I'm stuck on, but I really do believe that anything can be done for kids if it's the right thing in education, even with the parameters that we're in. We talk a lot about that, a
I
lot.
love it. Great. Two more. What are you grateful for right now?
Oh man, we're just super blessed, I think, as my family is, and this community, and I've got an incredible school board. Um, I'm grateful for the life that I've been given, God that has given me, and the solid foundation that I have in Him, to where all of this anxiety and chaos we're living in, that there's hope, and there's hope for all of us, and it's through Him. So I'll be proud to say that.
I love that. All right. Final question. What is your hope for the future of education?
My hope for the future of education is that we remain a community and public driven entity. We're the foundation of this nation. We were built on a consistent form of education that created entrepreneurs, that created risk takers, that created innovators, that created the greatest nation on earth. But it started just like every career does, in a teacher's classroom.
Justin, thank you. This has been really fun. I know there's a lot more to go into, and I'm excited in 10 days to host our first big convening together. So excited for what we learn there and excited for what comes out of it.
It's going to be great. And if anybody's interested, we'd love to have you at the OC too. If you don't mind me just plugging that real
Not
quick.
at all.
And we have site visits. We're an open book and love to share anything that we do, but also learn from you. So if you go to the oc.net, we got some site visits coming up. I think March 21st, the last one for the year. Or you can come see Katie and I in the future. We're going to do some things together there too. So Katie, thanks for having me today. Always appreciate you and what you're doing in your heart and your work for education as well.
Thank you, Justin.